right, welcome back to the channel. So Shakur Stevenson says he's got his eye on Leo Santa Cruz. And that's the guy that he wants to fight at 130 pounds. He also talks about Gervonta Davis, Teofimo Lopez, and Vasily Lomachenko up at 135 pounds. Let's chop it up about that because, for real, I think that I'm going to be a little critical of Shakur Stevenson in this video. Get ready for it. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back, welcome back. So we're going to talk about some little man boxing. Little man being the 130-pound division, actually 126 through 135 pounds, which at this point in time in boxing is pretty much stuffed with very good fighters and a lot of really good matchups that could happen, but just magically wind up never happening. Absolutely ridiculous, but this is boxing and you can expect that to happen. So Shakur Stevenson, who is the WBO 126-pound champion, who just came back and had a fight against Carballo on the ESPN card earlier last week at the weight of 130 pounds. Now, I do not know if Shakur Stevenson is going to stay at 130 pounds right now, or whether he's going to relinquish his 126-pound belt, or whether that was just a case of him being slightly, him fighting at 130 because of the training conditions right now, and might have made it a little more difficult for him to get into his same training regimen. So he felt that it could be a little bit more comfortable, especially against a guy the caliber of Carballo, to have that fight at 130 pounds and not 126 pounds. So he looked very good in the fight. Got Carballo out of there, looked better. He keeps looking better and better in each fight. And I've said, and I do believe that, whether or not he goes back to 126 pounds right now, he's going to be at 130. He's going to be at 135 pounds, and he might get as high as 140 pounds. I don't know about 147 pounds because, dude, right, if you start bumping up around those weight classes, you're starting to deal with the Virgil Ortizes and the Jaron Ennises of the world. And nah, as much as I think Shakur Stevenson is a special fighter, I don't see him being able to beat those type of guys. Now, what he talked about, though, does show me something that makes me a little bit worried, because he was asked by Ellie Sethback, because this interview is on ES News. You can go check it out on ES News. He was asked what he thought about the lightweight division. Oh, first he said, about the 130-pound division, like, who would you want to fight at the 130-pound division? And he says that Leo Santa Cruz, he wants Leo Santa Cruz. But that Leo Santa Cruz probably doesn't want to fight him because every time he's added him as a contact on social media, or he reached out to him, that Leo Santa Cruz just didn't seem very interested in fighting him. Well, welcome to planet Earth, Shakur, because that's Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz did the same thing to Guillermo Rigondeaux. He's doing the same thing to Gary Russell Jr. He is not fighting slick black fighters. That ain't what he's trying to do. What he's trying to do is keep guys in front of him that he thinks he can win, and he just milked out a long career and a number of titles by doing just that. Because in my opinion, if Leo Santa Cruz, when he was still at 122 pounds, would have fought Guillermo Rigondeaux, that would have been the end of Leo Santa Cruz. That would have been the end of Leo. Well, at least Leo Santa Cruz would have lost that fight, because Leo Santa Cruz has lost. I think he lost to Carl Frampton. Carl Frampton. He's got an L on his record, but he wound up beating Carl Frampton in the rematch. Of course, he's had a couple fights with Abner Mares, but Leo Santa Cruz just ain't fighting nobody like a Shakur Stevenson. And you can see that with what he's trying to do with Gary Russell Jr. Now, so that's the pipe dream there. Now, the reason why he would fight Gervonta Davis is because Gervonta Davis, he's getting older in his career, and his career is going to wind up pretty soon. And so he needs that big payday, because he's definitely been avoiding serious fights. So when you avoid serious fights with the big threats, yeah, your paydays stay right where they are. But hey, that was cool with him. That was cool with Leo Santa Cruz. But now he's got an opportunity to sell his record and sell his belt to Floyd Mayweather Jr. with this shellacking he's gonna take from Gervonta Davis. So it doesn't surprise me at all, nor should I think it should surprise Shakur Stevenson that he ain't going to hear anything from Leo Santa Cruz. Now, Leo Santa Cruz, not Leo Santa Cruz, but Shakur Stevenson proceeds to then talk about what's going to go on at 135 pounds. He's asked what he thinks about who the top 135 pounders are. Now, and he said, and he ranks them in this order. He says, well, Lomachenko, then, Tank or Teofimo. He was split between whether it was Gervonta Davis or Teofimo Lopez. And then he said after that, for, Rayn Garcia. Now, I think, you missed somebody. You missed Chris Colbert. Because I don't see why anybody's why you put Rayn Garcia up in the number 4 lightweight and you're not going to mention Chris Colbert. But hey, man, that's just, maybe that was just an oversight, but it's not. What it is, and it's revealed in the second portion of the question, which was, who do you want to fight? Right? So he names who he thinks, Shakur Stevenson names who he thinks the top lightweights are. Then he's asked to say who he wants to fight. And he chooses, he'd say, well, what I'd really like to do is fight Rayn Garcia. Because he says he'd fight Leo Santa Cruz tomorrow. I'm sure he would. And he would wax him tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. But then he says Rayn Garcia, and the direct quote was, because I would torch Rayn Garcia and take all his fans. So he's like, Rayn Garcia's got a big fan base, so yeah, I'd want him because I can whoop him in front of all of his fans. I can take his fan base from him. And then he said the other one would be Lomachenko because of the legacy related to Lomachenko. And then he gives Lomachenko an excuse. He gives him an excuse for losing to, saying, he wasn't that experienced. That's why he lost to Orlando Salido. I really don't count that. He wasn't that experienced. Shakur Stevenson, yes, he was. He was definitely experienced. Definitely experienced enough. He just lost the fight. That's all it is. And he ain't ever fought another guy like that. But you can't take that L off his record. But to say that he's the number 1 lightweight, there's nothing unreasonable about that. But notice who he did not mention he wanted to fight. Right? Look at the people that he named and who he did not mention. At 126 pounds, there's Gary Russell Jr. Not mentioned. When he talks about who he wants to fight at 126 pounds, he talks about Josh Warrington, right? I want Josh Warrington. Josh Warrington don't want no parts of Shakur Stevenson, right? Why doesn't he want part with Shakur Stevenson? Well, what Andre Ward said and Tim Bradley said on the telecast for the Shakur Stevenson fight is that a lot of these guys, they didn't mention they didn't mention Josh Warrington by name, but they said a lot of these guys don't want to fight a slick black southpaw, right? Well, how convenient is it that there is a slick black southpaw at the same weight class as Josh Warrington and Shakur Stevenson, who's Gary Russell Jr.? Didn't hear that out of Shakur Stevenson's mouth. I think I might have heard Andre Ward mention his name in passing, but clearly no big push for Gary Russell Jr. Okay, but you could say, well, he is talking about moving to 130. What about 100? What about 130 pounds? Well, he didn't mention Miguel Berchelt. He didn't, of the 130 pounders that he wanted to fight, he didn't mention Miguel Berchelt. Well, he said that, yeah, there's Miguel Berchelt up there, but he mentioned Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez is not the top 130 pounder. Top 130 pounder, if it's not Gervonta Davis, since he's going to be fighting at 130 pounds against Leo Santa Cruz for the belt that Gervonta Davis already had. If it's not, because the number 1 130-pound fighter is Gervonta Davis. But he didn't mention Gervonta Davis either. Didn't mention Miguel Berchelt. And then at lightweight, he didn't mention, he didn't say, he mentioned the names, but he didn't say, oh yeah, I want to fight Gervonta Davis or Leo Santa Cruz. But look, or Teofimo Lopez. And I find it interesting because the same reason that he says that he wants to fight Rayn Garcia, that same logic applies to Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis has a bigger fan base than Rayn Garcia. He does better numbers. He's the headliner in being able to sell out in LA, sell out in New York, sell out in Atlanta, sell out in Baltimore. I mean, there's more money in fighting right now. There's more money in fighting Gervonta Davis than there is fighting Rayn Garcia. So now what do I think about that is that it just tells me that Shakur Stevenson doesn't quite think he's all the way ready to fight the top level fighters. Because he's not calling for the top level fighters. He didn't call for the top in that conversation. He described more. What he described more about me was he's looking for dudes he thinks is easy to beat. Because that's the case with Leo Santa Cruz. He can beat Leo Santa Cruz waking up in the morning. What about Gervonta Davis at 130? Or Miguel Berchelt at 130? Oscar Valdez, same thing. The top guy is not Oscar Valdez. It's Miguel Berchelt. I like what he said about Vasily Lomachenko, right? But then he said before that, though, it was Rayn Garcia, not Teofimo Lopez, not even Devin Haney. I think he might have said, he had Devin Haney after Gervonta Davis and Teofimo Lopez. He didn't say the Haney, he didn't say Gervonta, he didn't say Gary Russell Jr. That to me seems like, it seems kind of Mayweather-ish, to tell you the truth. But, that's my take on it. And I know, though, that this dude is going to be a great fighter. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. I just think that maybe he was saying, talking about the career as he wants it to progress, based on what his manager is, the advice that his manager is giving him. But I want to see him in there against the best. And even if that's a black fighter, if it's a black fighter and you guys have the same fan base, I still want to see the fight. All of this looking for a guy that has a different fan base than I do so we can bring it together, that's all fine and dandy when it happens naturally, right? When you guys both prove that you're the best fighter and it happens that way. But trying to, manufacture the scenario, it's just whack. Anyway, I hope whack ain't too dated a term, but I don't know what other way to express it. Anyway, that's me. That's my opinion. You let me know your opinion in the comment section. It would be greatly appreciated. Comment, share, subscribe, all those good things. And with that, I'm out. Peace.